The process of healing is essentially the process of creating a new self. And the interesting thing about healing is that you're seeing things in basically an opposite way of how you previously saw them, right? Because you are approaching things in an opposite way, right? To heal is to experience the opposite of what you previously experienced. So if what you previously experienced was dysfunction and all that stuff, and not being congruent with how you felt in regards to a situation, then healing is, or I should say, the opposite of that is actually feeling the emotions, actually being present and congruent with what is. And, say for instance, if it's anger, right? If it's anger, then you need to feel that and you need to be congruent with that. So, emotions are a huge part of the self. So, you're essentially creating a new self. And that's the interesting thing, right? That's how that works. Um, what I've come to notice for myself is that I'm not responding to situations the same way that I used to. Um, I'm very much more kind of like, I don't know, concise with how I approach things. I'm recognizing that my time and my energy are very important to me, and knowing exactly what it is to invest that in and what it is to not invest that in is very important, because if you're just all over the place with your energy is just going to go in many different directions, and it's not going to be beneficial because it's just going to be all over the place. Um, but essentially, you're creating a new self because maybe you were once a people pleaser. Now you're not a people pleaser anymore, right? And it's important to have that understanding because, you know, here's the thing: the self comes with boundaries, right? There are the boundaries of the self. The self has boundaries. When the self does not have boundaries, there is no self, right? There's no understanding for where the self begins and where the self ends. That's boundaries, beginning and ending, right? I am this till that, right? Like it's like there's a container there, right? There are limits. People that don't have boundaries they don't have, you know, that they don't have self. So um, it's very interesting when you look at it from the standpoint of it's just a matter of essentially creating the self or letting an old self that was dysfunctional no longer exist, right? And that's the way that that works. That's really the way that that works. What I'm noticing for myself again is that I don't approach things the way that I used to anymore, and that's very interesting for me. That shows me that the old self is dying, the old ego, right? Um, and this has a lot to do with wiring in a new identity. If you're coming from a life of low self esteem and not feeling like you're good enough, right, you're not going to approach life in a way that is confident, in a way that is successful and fulfilling. You're going to approach life from a standpoint of not thinking that you're good enough, therefore, you're not going to go after things. When you challenge that, when you actually, recreate yourself, right? You're wiring in new belief systems, and that completely it totally transforms how you approach life. That's really what it's all about. It's about the belief systems. If you believe that you are capable, then you're going to create experiences in life based on that or those beliefs. And that's what's necessary, right? So, in terms of healing, you're essentially creating a new self. And that self is consisting of many elements of the opposite of what you previously experienced. So, if you were previously a people pleaser, um, you're going to have limits and you're going to be confident and have no anxiety around your capacity to say no. And that's very important because you need to know when it's necessary to say no. And if there's that feeling inside of you that's telling you to say no and you don't say no, there are, you know, consequences that come with that. So it's very important to understand how this process of healing works. Again, you are essentially creating a new self, a much more formed self, a self that has limits and boundaries. Um, I'm just very interested in the space of awareness that I'm in now because I'm recognizing what this is meaning for me and how this is transforming my life moving forward. Um, where I'm putting my energy, what I'm putting my energy in, what it means to me, knowing exactly why I'm doing what it is that I'm doing. That's one of the biggest things. I remember just not knowing why I was doing something. And when you don't know why, it's likely that you're not doing something that aligns with you authentically. And that's an issue. That's a very big issue. That's a problem. You need to know exactly what it is that you're doing and why it is that you're doing. And this is why self awareness is so important. But self awareness can only come from having an actual formed self with boundaries, with limits. And yeah, that's how it works.